Hi. In my experience, the cuffs of the shirt are often worn out long before the shirt itself, so while the shirt can look quite like new, the cuffs could still look like this, making the shirt kind of useless for the workspace or other places where looks matter. So today I thought I'd show you a really simple way of fixing the cuffs, making them look like new again. And the best part is it only takes about half an hour to fix both of them. And since this could potentially make the shirt last twice as long as it would otherwise have done, it's really well spent time, I think. It's often said that you should replace the cuffs when they look like this, and you could do that if you're okay with having cuffs in another pattern compared to the shirt, or if you have extra textile in the same pattern as the shirt. But the idea that I'm going to talk about is to shorten the cuffs a bit and make a new edge, and that of course makes the arms a bit shorter, 6 or 7 millimeters, but since I always buy shirts with arms that are a bit too long, that doesn't matter, in my case at least. So we start by cutting the seam at the edge of the cuff from one end to the other using a thread cutter, and this is often really easy because the seam is already torn apart. And at the corner here we cut a little bit more. Then we cut the thread of the inner seam a little further away from the edge, so that we can tear the two pieces of textile apart. And start cutting the inner seam from one end to the other. And in this case the cuff was so worn out, large pieces of textile is basically falling off, so I cut them away. Then it's time for ironing, so while the iron is heating up to temperature suitable for cotton, I soak the cuff. Then I start ironing the outer textile layer by folding it inwards and pressing really hard, and since the inner textile was really torn this time, I fold a little more than I would perhaps have done otherwise to make it stronger. Then I iron the inner layer and I fold it so that it almost reaches the edge of the outer textile, but not quite. Let it stop a millimeter or so further in because of the flowery pattern. I don't want that to be too visible from the outside. It's hard to get it perfect in the corners, but I fold it to look as nice as possible, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's still a huge improvement from the way it looked before. You can see how the outer white textile layer reaches a millimeter or so further than the inner flowery layer. Then it's time to bring out the sewing machine, and this time I've loaded it with a white top thread and a blue bobbin thread. And I'll start the seam here and follow the edge as closely as possible, but not too closely, because I don't want to miss the textile on the other side, which doesn't quite reach as far out as the upper layer. And then around the corner and all the way back again, with approximately 5 or 6 millimeters between the seams. This picture shows the same thing, but perhaps a little clearer. The dashed lines are the old seams, and the new seam starts at the yellow dot to the left, and it then follows the lines or arrows around in a circle. And even if the results are not perfect, it looks quite nice, I think. And definitely better than before.